So I've got table cleared off, I've got my mat and my cutter, and just cleaned up the edge on this, so I'm ready to start cutting some strips for around the blocks. So I'm cutting strips so that I can do the rest of the outside edges. And now I have to pin them on. And then I can stitch, and then these 4 blocks that I have so far will be bordered nicely. That's a little bit wider, so I'm going to do this one the other way around, so that will ease in the excess. I think one of the things about doing quilting in an RV is you kind of have to embrace sort of a minimalist lifestyle, willingness to have things not be like you might want them at home. This is not an ideal ironing surface, but it's what I have and it works, so this is what I do. The little travel iron works really well for this. And so the pins I had earlier were not the best pins for joining things, but again, it's what I had and it works. So it's fun to do. So I'm busy working on the embroidery for the last few blocks to try to get them done so I can put my sashing around them. And I'm just going to show here that some things don't always go like they're supposed to. I stitched that to it. So now I have to fix this before I can get any further on. So it was really nice while we were able to be camping at Detroit Lake to be back in the RV and being able to work on the applique blocks that I had. Some of them had been ready for sashing. I already had the embroidery done, but I had 4 more that still had embroidery to do, and I didn't want to cut them until I'd finished that because it could bunch up the fabric a little bit, pull it in, so I wanted them to be as flat as possible. So I needed to wait. So that's what I worked on this week, finishing up the embroidery on the last applique blocks, getting them trimmed, doing the sashing, cutting more sashing, which you'll see in a little bit. And I apologize if it's boring to watch me just sit and cut things, but it's what I was doing. Oh, and on this block where I had stitched part of the side to the back, I realized when I looked at it closely that I was close to the edge that I was going to trim off anyway, so I was able to just kind of cut around it and pull out the little threads. So that was kind of cheating. I didn't have to unstitch it, but it was nice to not have to unstitch it. Now, when I had laid these out originally, I had made a measurement, kind of figured out where I wanted the edges of the block to be, and I'd written down a measurement, but I didn't like mark the edges or anything. So now that I'm standing there getting ready to cut it, I have my little paper that has the measurements, and I'm having to look at it and go, okay, where was that measurement supposed to line up with? So I'm kind of having to replace where I want the main part of the block to be and figure that out before I go to cut it. This one, I actually kind of messed up. I wanted to have about an inch higher on the top of it, and I didn't, but it'll work. It'll be fine. But I don't think I got stuff placed where I originally had planned. And yes, you can tell as I'm working on this, I do need to change my blade in my rotary cutter. Let's put that top on my list for my next day that I'm working in my sewing room. I really wish that I had made marks for myself as to where I wanted my outline of my block to be when I made my measurements originally. It would have made it a lot easier. But I was concerned that I might need some of that excess, and that's why I didn't mark it. And this block with a big thick needle that I had made in it, it was really hard to get the ruler to stay steady. So it just kind of wanted to wobble on that. And then of course, cutting more sashing. I didn't bother to do the math. I have several yards of this fabric, so I didn't do the math to figure out like how much will I need of these strips. I just figured I'll cut 1.5 inch strips, and when I need more, I'll cut more 1.5 inch strips. And so I'll just keep doing that. Set aside the pieces that I have from cutting bigger pieces so that I'm sure at some point I'll be able to use them for sashing between some of the smaller blocks. I was both excited and kind of depressed at the same time looking at these. I got them all sashed. I got them put up on my design wall, kind of how I want them laid out. And at first I was really excited, like, look at all the progress I've made. And then I stepped back and looked at it and I went, it kind of looks like it did before, because the applique blocks were basically done. Yes, the embroidery wasn't done and the sashing's on there, so it does look different, but I kind of feel like I worked really hard to make progress that it's not really visible to see how much work was actually put into that and how much progress was actually made. I was hoping that I would get far enough to be able to start putting other blocks up there with it, but at least I've got to the point now that I'm ready to do that next. And I'm really excited about doing that part because that's where it's going to start coming together as a real quilt top. I am pleased with how the dark blue fabric looks with this. Thank you for anyone that actually voted. I didn't get a lot of comments on here, but I did also ask friends and family, and the overwhelming majority was for the dark blue, so that's what we went with. Now I just have to get busy and finish the rest of it.